At Sarah Cannon, the way we fight cancer together sets us apart. Ensuring you can access world-class cancer care closer to home, Sarah Cannon connects patients to top cancer experts offering integrated cancer care with convenient access to clinical trials across the U.S. and U.K. We have hundreds of oncology-trained nurses navigating you through every aspect of cancer care, from discovery through recovery. We are one of the leading providers in the world of blood and marrow transplants, and one of the largest providers of radiation oncology services in the U.S. We also lead the way in advancing cancer therapies through clinical research. We have been a key leader in shaping the standard of care through new drug approvals for more than 20 years, and have thousands of patients enrolled in clinical trials annually through hundreds of clinical trial options. And we have one of the largest early phase clinical trial programs, meaning you can access the newest treatment options without leaving your community. Our personalized medicine initiatives support our ability to identify genetic mutations specific to your cancer that may be matched with more effective therapies. But what really sets Sarah Cannon apart is the personal touch we offer you and your family. Understanding that each person facing cancer is unique, we focus on you as an individual. With Sarah Cannon, your journey starts with an engaged team standing by your side. Your navigator, physicians with research expertise, nurses, and caregivers. We are Sarah Cannon. What sets us apart is the way we fight cancer together.
Well, if you are like a lot of us here in America, so many of us have been affected personally by cancer. Well, I've got some potentially good news for you. Researchers unveiling a class of powerful new cancer drugs, and one of them uses the body's own immune system to target certain tumors. There is a catch, though, and it's the price. It's up to $140,000 a year. Dr. David Spiegel is the director of the lung cancer research program at the Sarah Cannon Research Institute. Good afternoon. You say you've treated hundreds of patients with this. They're called PD-1 drugs. What's the outcome you're seeing so far?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, we've had the great privilege of having many of these exciting new therapies at Sarah Cannon at our main center in Nashville. We've had an opportunity to treat several hundred, about 600 patients with these drugs across different types of cancer: lung cancer, melanoma, advanced kidney cancer, and actually just recently bladder cancer.
Wow.
These are very, very exciting therapies.
Certainly. So what's the outcome? How are things looking for your patients?
Well, it's early. These studies are still in progress, but the early results are very exciting. So across tumor types, especially in lung cancer, we've been seeing some remarkable success stories for patients. The excitement is the idea of using a patient's own immune system, as you were saying, to fight cancer, not administering a more traditional thing like chemotherapy, which comes with a little bit more toxicity. These drugs so far appear to be not only effective, safe at controlling advanced cancer, but not allowing patients to be sick. Patients are hopefully enjoying good qualities of life on these therapies.
Now, doctor, this is just in clinical trials right now. It has not been FDA approved yet. Is that correct?
That's correct, but we're all anticipating, hopefully in the next several months or even year, to have these therapies available in the U.S. I think what's made the news recently is the approval of one of these agents. It has a name, nivolumab, approved in Japan for the treatment of melanoma, and a very difficult to treat cancer.
That's the one that's costing $140,000 a year. So folks here, your patients at least, how are they paying for it?
Well, for example, at our center at Sarah Cannon, these drugs are available on a research basis, so fortunately patients don't have to pay for drugs that are part of research programs. But you bring up a good point. When these drugs, if these drugs get approved, will these be affordable for patients with various types of cancers? I think these will be. I think these will be drugs that hopefully are covered by our insurance system, that will be shown to be valuable things to cover for people because they're so effective so far and they appear to be so safe. It's hard to imagine that these drugs won't substantially change how we care for cancer in the United States.
Okay, so for our viewers who may have missed it, they will certainly want to write this down. It's called a PD-1 drug. That's the type of drug that you are using in clinical trials. When do you predict this will be in mainstream use in the United States?
So just to clarify, the category is called immunotherapy. So these are therapies to boost the immune system. As you point out, PD-1 inhibitors, there's another class called PD-L1 inhibitors.
Okay.
So these drugs are in late-stage trials in several cancers: melanoma, kidney cancer and lung cancer. We hope in the next several months and in the next year, we might have approval in various cancers and various settings in the United States. A very exciting time for cancer care, for oncologists, for patients and families.
Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. One thing that families do need, and that is certainly hope that there's something that they can do about that cancer. Doctor, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right now, scientists in Israel releasing a new study showing cancer cells grow and spread around the body more quickly during sleep. Joining me now, Dr. David Spiegel, oncologist and lung cancer program director at Sarah Cannon Research Institute. Doctor, this is so interesting. What do we know, what don't we know from this study?
Well, first, thanks for having me. Pretty interesting study. People have always wondered, does cancer grow at different times of the day at different rates? So this is a small study, and it's based in mice. That's important to say up front. But the investigators were just trying to understand, does cancer grow faster? Does more cancer grow during the daytime or at nighttime? And they discovered at nighttime there appeared to be in this one model more cancer growth.
Okay, so during the day your body acts differently, the way it's regulating things and kind of taking care of itself, or at least when you're awake.
That's correct. And it may have something to do with hormones. In fact, these investigators looked at the levels of steroids. We have steroid in our body. It's cortisol. Those levels seem to drop at nighttime. They go up in the morning, and that may be a protective effect during the daytime, but at nighttime when those levels are low, it may allow some cancer signals to be promoted.
Okay, so would it change treatment? Would you schedule treatment, say, if you're doing chemo, would you do it at night? Could it impact those kinds of things?
Yeah, so the lead investigator made that comment that this is really not an issue of changing the type of therapy, but maybe when we give it. But, as we move more into therapies that are oral, so pills that patients take during different times of the day, and eventually these drugs reach what are called steady states or steady levels in your body. So you wonder if it really makes a difference if you've been on a medicine that's at a constant level in your body throughout the day. But it could have implications if this proves to be true in humans.
All right, we want to talk about some good news. We need that, especially on the health front these days. CDC saying we're all living longer these days.
Right. So this was a report that came out yesterday that the life expectancy continues to go up. And we were joking that actually for women, this continues to be an advantage over men. So women now can expect to live to be just past 80, about 81. Men are a little bit behind, about 4 or 5 years. Always seems to be the case.
Okay, so is it better diagnosis? Is it better management of conditions that we have? Are there cures? What's driving this?
Yeah, that's a good question. The leading causes of death still are heart disease and then cancer, and many predict cancer will overtake heart disease in the near future. So speaking for cancer, we can look more closely at that, and we know that cancer treatments are getting better. We know we're finding cancer earlier with screening for things like prostate cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer. That probably is impacting the survival rates, at least for the cancer population.
All right, and very quickly, one troubling note was that suicide is up. Is it that we're not managing mental health care as well?
Yeah, I saw that. So of the leading causes of death, all were reduced except suicide. That was really disturbing. I think even experts in suicide don't quite understand that, but certainly a call for attention to that topic.
All right, doctor, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
There is a new breast cancer vaccine in development at Washington University in St. Louis, and it's showing promise in small early clinical trials. So far, the vaccine is proving to be safe in patients with metastatic breast cancer. Early evidence also suggests that the vaccine is helping to slow the cancer's progression. Researchers say that they're now planning a larger clinical trial to test the vaccine in newly diagnosed breast cancer patients. So let's bring in Dr. Erica Hamilton. She's an associate director of the breast cancer program at Sarah Cannon Research Institute in Nashville. Good morning to you, doctor. We hear about these types of things a lot. How significant is this research?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Heather. I think this is really promising. This is an early trial. It was 14 patients with metastatic breast cancer that they looked at, and they tried a new vaccine against mammoglobin A, a protein that's expressed on the cell surface of about 40 to 80% of cancer cells. And their primary objective really was to look and make sure this vaccine was well tolerated, and it looked like it was.
Yeah, and so as I understand it, about half the patients, their cancer didn't progress, which is great news for those half of patients. But what we're talking about here is an ability to use the body's immune system and develop a vaccine to actually go out and attack those cancer cells. Is that the wave of the future for fighting cancer, using these kinds of vaccines?
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, our standard treatment for cancers right now are radiation therapy, surgery, and then therapeutics like chemotherapy, as well as targeted agents. But immuno-oncology is a rapidly advancing field. We've seen the approval of several of these agents in the past couple of years, and it's a really attractive option, especially for patients, you know, being able to get results that are similar or sometimes even better than chemotherapy without as many of the side effects.
So we could end up seeing the end of chemotherapy and radiation.
We would love nothing better.
Oh gosh, we sure hope so. How long before you think that we start to see this available to a lot of patients? Give patients some hope. There's so many people out there who are fighting cancer, that try to get into clinical trials. You know, those just the regular chemo and radiation is subpar, frankly, when it comes to fighting some cancers.
Right. You know, we've seen the approval of some of these agents. There's a vaccine approved for prostate cancer called Provenge. We've also seen the approval of agents like ipilimumab for some other type of cancers. These all kind of fall within the umbrella of immuno-oncology, or using the body's own immune system to fight cancer cells. You know, as far as the timeline for this particular vaccine against mammoglobin A, you know, I think we're still, you know, in the early stages of testing this. This was a small trial with only 14 metastatic breast cancer patients, but I do know that they're planning a larger trial to look into this agent further.
I don't want to, you know, really try to nail you down too much, but are we talking months, or are we talking years and years?
It will be years. You know, unfortunately, a larger trial needs to be designed. You know, our standard trial really is something called randomization, where we take, you know, a group of women that all qualify, and half get the therapy and half get something different or not this particular vaccine, and we compare how they do. So, you know, for this next larger trial to enroll enough patients and follow them for a period of time, we're probably talking a couple of years out.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Erica Hamilton, you and all those cancer doctors do just so much great work. And let me just say, as a person who's dealt with a family member who had a very serious form of cancer and didn't make it, thank you for what you're all doing.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you again.
2014 saw a number of advances in the treatment of cancer, which is, of course, a disease that touches us all. You ready for this statistic? 1 in every 4 deaths in the United States is from cancer. But there is some good news. More Americans are now surviving with cancer, and they're surviving for longer. Joining us now is Dr. Skip Duras, who is the Chief Medical Officer at the Sarah Cannon Research Institute. Dr. Duras, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today. What is perhaps the best news about how far we have come in battling cancer?
Thank you, Ashley. There's a lot of great stories in the treatment of cancer. I think one of the most impressive statistics that there will be almost 15 million cancer survivors in this country next year, patients that are fighting and are alive after being treated for their cancer. And we're seeing in almost every major cancer the number of patients dying declining each year.
But Dr. Burris, we never get that huge headline, and believe me, it would be the lead story on every one of our programs that we found a cure. So why are the stats getting better when we still don't have that magical panacea?
So great question, and still looking for the cure in many disease settings. But in fact, we're finding ways to treat and control cancer in many, many patients. We're looking at trying to transform it into more of a chronic disease. This is not only looking at new drugs, but also looking at new ways to use therapies to allow the patient's own immune system to treat their cancer.
Well, that's actually exactly what I wanted to ask you about, with the notion that it's terrifying for anyone who hears, you know, he or she has cancer, and that they've got to go through this really painful and damaging regimen of chemotherapy, radiation, etc., that there are these other alternatives. Are the alternatives equal or better, or are they just supplemental? Is that adding to the improved numbers?
So far, actually, it looks like in the field of immunotherapy that the going to be unlimited. We're in an area now where we've seen several of these now approved by the FDA for treating certain types of cancer. In particular this year, 2 approved for the treatment of melanoma. We're seeing patients now live years and years after being diagnosed with metastatic incurable types of cancer. And so I think the promise is bright that, in fact, we might be talking about patients being long-term survivors, if not cures.
A really good friend of mine has been fighting cancer for years, and he's sort of that remarkable being who I believe his brain is doing it for him, just because he's so intent on just killing this disease. He talks about feeding the cancer cells and how testosterone feeds those cancer cells so often. Are we much better now at determining how to manage that kind of metabolism for a cancer cell, and say, instead of killing those cancer cells or damaging them with the radiation chemotherapy, we can actually fix the cancer cells or actually even cure the cancer cells?
It's a great way to think about it, and discussing testosterone is one of those hormones. We know that estrogen's a player in many women with breast cancer, and we now know that there's other growth factors that are out there that can stimulate and cause cancers to grow out of control. There's a number of ways to approach this. We've long used hormone blocking therapies, and there's actually new types of those coming along, often given as a pill that can in fact allow the cancer cell to not be able to grow and divide and to behave more like a normal cell. We also have seen advances in looking at other growth factors in cancer cells and designing pills and types of treatments that can go in, turn off that pathway and allow cells to mature or allow the cells to undergo natural death so that the cancer doesn't progress. I
look at these statistics because I think everybody at some point believes we're just not going to get that disease, and then you see that about 40.4% of men and women in the United States is going to be diagnosed with some kind of cancer. It just is astounding. And what that makes me think is, please tell me there's something really big on the horizon, because if this announcement is coming for so many of us, and it is, what's the good news that we can expect?
So the good news that we can expect is that we're finding cancers earlier, we actually have better ways to treat them, and we're actually seeing many more patients live longer without the side effects of therapy. Some of those great advances have come in understanding the molecular profile or the machinery that's causing that cancer to grow and divide. Other advances are the immunotherapies that we talked about, where we're actually using the patient's own immune system to eradicate or eliminate the cancer. We had 19 new drug approvals this year in 2014, and there's many more very promising therapies in late stages of cancer research which look equally promising.
So I'm going to wish you a very happy 2015 and a very successful 2015, because your folks at the Sarah Cannon Research Institute are doing some great work, and we all need you to do exceptional work. Dr. Skip Duras, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Ashley.
New medical breakthrough into what causes cancer, and it may surprise you. Despite common perception, researchers claim 9 out of 31 cancers are not linked to genetics or an unhealthy lifestyle. Instead, bad luck may be to blame when it comes to cell division. So what can you do to protect yourself?
Here to explain is Director of GI Cancer Research Program, Dr. Joanna Bendell. Dr. Bendell, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
So we read now that a lot of cancers are due to random, defective cell division, bad luck, rather than genetics or what we eat or smoke. Tell us about that and what we can be doing to protect ourselves anyway.
So this was a very interesting study, and I think pointed out some very good thoughts. One is that we still have to remember that about 1/3 of cancers are still caused by some of these risk factors, like smoking, what we eat, family risk factors. Now, 2/3 of cancers, we think, are caused by the fact that during our normal lifespan, our cells divide. We replace old cells with new cells. What happens is when we do this, those cells can accumulate mutations when they divide. And those mutations can sometimes lead to cancers. And so what we're seeing is probably from this study, about 2/3 of cancers happen almost randomly during our lifespan.
Well, cell division mutations, to me, that's something that would be very hard for me to be able to tell in myself. I know I can make sure that I don't smoke. I can make sure that I don't go and spend too much time in the sun and all of that. But does this mean we're going to need more screenings for prevention and for treatment and for detection?
Right, that's exactly what it means. It drives home the importance that because we can't predict in about 2/3 of cancer cases who's going to get those cancers, that we really have to focus on making sure that we get our colonoscopies, we get our mammograms, we get our skin cancer screenings, all of those preventative tests, to that if we do develop those cancers, we catch them early when we can cure them.
Okay, beyond screening and early detection, you also say something that's very interesting, and it seems to be so cutting edge, something called molecular profiling in terms of the treatment of cancers. Cancer researchers like you are looking at it, and it's a whole new different world, correct?
That so much is happening now in the field of cancer research. We can actually take an individual patient's tumor and sequence it and find these mutations that might be driving their cancers. And we have a number of agents that are now available, both FDA approved and in clinical trials, that can target those specific mutations to tailor therapy for those patients.
Well, any new information in the fight against cancer is certainly welcome. Joanna Bendell, thank you so much for your expertise this morning.
Thanks,
Dr.
so
Bendell.
much.
Health news now. The FDA giving final approval for a new breast cancer drug more than 2 months earlier than expected. The drug is called Ibrance, and it works by targeting certain proteins involved in the growth of cancer cells. Apparently, this could forever change the way the disease is treated. For more on this, we are joined by Dr. Erica Hamilton, Associate Director of the Breast Cancer Program at the Sarah Cannon Research Institute. Dr. Hamilton, is this a game changer?
Thanks for having me, Jenna. I think this definitely has the possibility of being a game changer. This study that was the study that palbociclib, or Ibrance, was approved off of was Paloma-1, and it showed a near doubling of the progression-free survival for women with first-line metastatic hormone receptor positive breast cancer from 10.2 to 20.2 months. There is a confirmatory study underway, Paloma-2, to confirm this, but I think that this definitely has the potential to be practice-changing in clinic, the way first-line patients are treated.
Interesting. In simplest of terms, how is this different than what's already on the market?
Yeah, so this drug, palbociclib, is given in combination with letrozole, one of the very common endocrine therapies that we treat breast cancer with. So in this trial, women either receive letrozole alone, which is the standard of care, or letrozole in combination with the palbociclib. Palbociclib is a CDK4/6 inhibitor, and the CDK4/6 pathway is important to tell cancer cells to divide. So by giving a medication like palbociclib, we can block the signal that tells the cancer cell to continue to grow and divide.
Interesting. So what are the side effects? As we hear from, all sorts of medications out there for cancer, there's a lot of side effects. What about this one?
Right, and that's a great piece of news for patients is that this medication is oral. It's a pill that patients can take at home, and it's very well tolerated. We've had the opportunity to work with this compound in clinical trials at Sarah Cannon, and it's very well tolerated for patients. The most common side effects is a low white blood cell count, which is normally asymptomatic for patients, as well as some fatigue or just general tiredness.
Interesting. So not major side effects, although those certainly can impact your life, and I don't want to make light of it. If cancer, certainly breast cancer, has impacted my family, and I know so many others, doctor. And it's interesting to see that the FDA approved this quicker than thought. Is there any risk attached to that it somehow has been approved so much faster than what was expected?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had enough information to feel comfortable that this drug is safe. The study that it was approved on, Paloma-1, was a smaller-based trial. The confirmatory study that I mentioned earlier is a larger study with hundreds of patients. The approval is contingent on the fact that Paloma-2 confirms the results of Paloma-1. But I think that it's probably going to look very similar, and I think that this has the opportunity to be the new standard of care.
So can patients walk in today and say to their doctor, listen, I just heard about this new drug on Fox News, and I really would like to try it? Is it accessible to everybody?
Yes, they can. And I think that that's one of the encouraging things about the approval of this, not only for metastatic breast cancer patients, but also cancer patients in general and the medical community is that I think this represents another big step by the FDA to get these promising breakthrough drugs out to the clinic sooner and to patients.
Real quickly, this is always the million-dollar question. Is this a sign that we're closer to a cure for cancer? Are we getting closer, doctor?
Yeah, I think cancer has become more of a chronic illness. Before patients didn't do very well with cancer. Every year we make more and more breakthroughs. We have more drugs available, better ways to treat cancer. And so I think this really is becoming a chronic disease that patients live with and can continue to live their lives with instead of, a devastating diagnosis sometimes.
Well, it's nice to have a little good news or something to focus on here. Dr. Hamilton, thank you so much for the time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Approximately 1.6 million people will be diagnosed with cancer just this year. But thanks to continuous medical breakthroughs, the chance of survival is on the rise. By 2024, the number of male survivors will go from 6.9 million to 9.3 million. And female survivors will go from 7.6 million to 9.6 million. So just how close are we to a cure? Joining me now are 5 leaders, extraordinary leaders in that fight. From the Sarah Cannon Research Institute, CEO Deanna Smith, and Dr. Skip Duras, Erica Hamilton, Joanna Bendell, and David Spiegel. We thank you all for being with us. Deanna, I want to start with you. This center is huge. Its mission is massive. Explain the landscape right now in terms of how the Institute is working hard to get closer to a cure.
Right, so we know the statistics are compelling. As you said, 1 out of 2 men, 1 out of 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer. We're a global network, and we're committed to bringing access, world-class cancer care to patients in the communities where they live.
It's incredible to hear that. Dr. Skip Duras, we're thankful that you're here right now. There are some new treatments and research that are going on right now. What can you tell us today?
So it's an amazing story, Elizabeth. Yeah. So over 40 years since President Nixon declared the war on cancer, and after decades of giving more drugs and more radiation, we now are fighting the battle totally in a different manner. And the results are frankly dramatic. We're now using targeted therapies to aim only at the cancer cells and spare the normal cells, true targeted approaches. We're using pills to turn off problems in cancer cells so that they'll die and go away. And then most importantly, we're learning how to use the body's own immune system to in fact fight our cancers. And the results with that have been nothing short of dramatic.
When we hear about Angelina Jolie's treatment, what can you tell us about that?
So Angelina Jolie had inherited a gene, the BRCA gene, sometimes known as the breast cancer gene, that causes patients that have that gene to have a very high incidence of cancer, often over 50%. So she did the right thing. She prophylactically removed those tissues that were at the highest risk for developing cancer.
Okay. Well, that brings us to Dr. Hamilton right here in the back. Thanks for being here. What breakthroughs in breast cancer should we have our eyes on that you're working on today?
Yeah, so I think one of the most exciting breakthrough in women's cancers really is in ovarian cancer, like you all were speaking about earlier. Ovarian cancer that's associated with the BRCA gene, or a hereditary form of ovarian cancer. And recently we've had the approval of a medicine called olaparib, which targets the BRCA gene. And I think this is really compelling because it shows us when we understand what's driving these cancers, we really can effectively fight them better, not use chemotherapy necessarily, spare the patient some of these side effects. We realize that treatment of cancer is not a one-size-fits-all approach anymore. We have to tailor our treatment to individual cancers and the individual patient.
That's great that work is going on. Dr. Bendell, I want to transfer here to now colon cancer. What can you tell us in the very latest area of that?
Well, we're so excited. In the last 10 years, we've probably tripled survival for patients with colon cancer, and that's been a lot due to new treatments that have come down the block. In fact, this year, we've just had a new treatment that was approved last week, which blocks blood vessel flow to the cancers, and I think we're going to have another one approved later this year. And most of these are, again, targeted agents, looking at having the body fight the cancer itself. And then what's even more important is bringing these agents, like Deanna was mentioning earlier, into the community, so most patients can stay in their homes and have access to the latest and greatest care.
Oh, thank you for that. Great work. Lung cancer, one of the top killers out there. Dr. Spiegel, what's going on there in research?
Yeah, that's correct. The leading cause of death from cancer. I'm a little selfish, but I think more excitement is happening in lung cancer research than anything else in oncology. One of the more exciting things has been, as Dr. Duras alluded to, the idea that you can use a therapy to boost a person's own immune system to fight cancer. Just in the last 2 months, we have a drug that's now approved. It's a medicine that boosts a patient's immune system, effectively turning that on to fight cancer cells. And just 2 weeks ago, another therapy...
Are you referring to the polio?
No, a little bit different. The idea is somewhat similar in terms of trying to activate your immune system, but these are therapies that don't work through that polio vaccine that you're alluding to. So in the last 2 months, we have new therapies that are on the horizon for a lot of patients with lung cancer that are diagnosed every year that can use their own body's immune system to fight cancer. Very exciting.
Incredible work. I want everyone to take a good look at your faces here, because these faces and their minds are working diligently to save lives. Each and every day, your teams are fantastic. We thank you for joining us from the Sarah Cannon Research Institute. Great work.
Thank you.
No scientist is an island. No patient fights alone. No laboratory changes the world by itself. There's no one magic bullet or golden cure. In the fight against cancer, no one can win the battle without help. It takes doctors, researchers, innovators, nurses, caregivers, handholders, and patients, all working together to move the fight forward. At Sarah Cannon, we're on a mission to change the way cancer treatment and care is advanced by focusing on how we can all advance it together, collaborating, sharing, breaking down barriers that stand in the way of those we're trying to serve. And it all starts by embracing the fact that there's strength in numbers. A strength so contagious, it has the potential to spread faster than any cancer can. Because getting the best of the best to work together is a victory unto itself.
There are moments in life when we feel overwhelmed and alone. For those facing cancer, such moments can point to many unfamiliar and frightening roads. Sarah Cannon offers you a specially trained nurse navigator to guide you through the cancer journey. With knowledge of your cancer, she identifies resources, provides emotional support, and helps you understand your care path. Your nurse navigator is your medical system advocate, there to connect you with every member of your care team and to help you understand your treatment plan. This means that you can focus on what really matters. You're not just a person with cancer. You are a unique individual with a life beyond this. While challenges are inevitable, your nurse navigator is trained to help you overcome obstacles and understand the road ahead. Sarah Cannon nurse navigators know the positive difference that they can make in your journey. We're here for you, right now, through treatment and beyond.